Hi, I'm Sandy Gennaro, and welcome to the Ultimate Beginner Series. I have been playing drums for about 25 years. The main reason is because it's a lot of fun. And whether you're in a garage with your buddies down the street or you're in an arena with 25,000 people, the role of the drums is basically the same. It's to be the heartbeat, the foundation, and the backbone of any band. And if you notice, in a lot of today's music, whether it be hip hop, dance, rap, rock and roll, the drums, besides the vocal, the drums are the most prominent things in the mix. Another reason why I love playing the drums is that it's a very, very physical instrument. All four limbs are working at the same time. Now, that's not to say that your four limbs are playing different rhythms at the same time. Your four limbs essentially are playing different parts of the same rhythm. So drumming is not as hard as it seems. Once you learn the basics and the fundamentals, it's just like riding a bicycle. Once you learn it, you never, ever, ever forget it. Because to be effective as a drummer in today's music is to play very, very simple, basic rhythms. Now, to take full advantage of this video, it's not necessary to have a drum set. If you do, that's all the better. But all you need is a pair of sticks, and in a little while we'll show you how to hold the sticks. But with your sticks, you can play along with what we do in this video in the air by air drumming, on the side of the bed, on a phone book, on your little brother's head, if your mother ain't looking, but whatever. So we can take full advantage of it without a drum set. So fasten your seatbelts, and let's get started. Hi, we're in the studio control room right now, and I'd like you to listen to something for a second. Now that sounded good, but there was just something missing. There was no drive. Well, that was music without drums. Now the drums have a very wide range of frequencies. There's low, there's mid-range, and there's high-end. Now let's bring in one element at a time. Let's bring in the bass drum, which is considered the low end. Okay, the bass drum is played with a bass drum pedal. Now, basically, there are two different techniques by which we can play the bass drum pedal. One is heel down, which basically is the same action as you have when you tap your foot on the ground to a song. But in this case, you place it on the pedal and up and down like so. That's heel down. Then the other technique is heel up. Now, heel up, you just place the ball of your foot on the widest portion of the pedal. The heel naturally is off the ground by nature of the fact that the pedal is slanted towards the ground anyway. So you place here, nice and relaxed, and the action is like this. Or when you play multiple beats, it looks something like this. Okay, it's a nice, relaxed, rocky motion. Don't be conscious about your heel constantly being off the ground. Okay, you don't stand on your tippy toes, if you will. You just set the ball of your foot on the pedal and just relax. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the seat height, which to me is the basis from which all the other heights are based around. When you set your seat height and you sit comfortably on the seat with your 2 feet on the ground, your thighs should be parallel to the ground. Okay. Um, if the seat is too low, your knees are going to be up in the air. If your seat is too high, your knees are going to be facing the ground. So a nice average place to start getting comfortable at the drum kit is with your seat with the thighs straight, parallel to the ground. Now, incidentally, I personally favor the heel up technique on the bass drum because it offers you more flexibility in power and endurance, etc. Just by the physical nature of the fact that when you play heel up, you're using your whole leg. You're using your hip, your thigh, your knee, your calf, and your ankle. When you play heel down, you're just using your ankle. So playing heel down may be okay for you depending on the type of music you play, but most drummers today play heel up. How you play is up to you. Experiment, try different ways, and you'll decide on what's right for you before too long. Okay, we're back in the control room. Let's bring the track back up again with the bass drum. Okay, now we're going to balance that out with the mid-range part of the drum set, which is considered the snare. Now, most people, when they clap along to a song, clap in 2 and 4, which is also called the backbeat. Now, let's see what the snare does to the track when we add it to it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the snare drum. Snare drum should be positioned between your legs. It shouldn't be too high. It shouldn't be too low. It should be at a height that when you play the snare drum in the center of the drum, your hand does not hit your thigh, and it shouldn't be so high where you're at an uncomfortable position like so. The snare drum, what makes the snare drum different from other drums is that underneath the snare drum we have snares, and snares rest against the bottom head. They can also be lifted from the bottom head or taken away from the bottom head like so. Okay? When they're engaged via this little throw, what they call a snare throw here at the side of it, when they're engaged, they rest against the bottom head, so when you strike the top of the drum, the air is forced through the drum, it vibrates the bottom head, and that's what vibrates the snares. That's what creates that high-end sound that is so characteristic of a snare drum. Now, the place to hit the snare drum, obviously, as with other drums, is in the center of the drum. That's where you get most of the sound out of the snare drum. We also have the option of hitting the snare drum, implementing what we call a rim shot. A rim shot is where the stick hits the rim of the drum as well as the head of the drum at the same time. That is a rim shot. This is a snare being played without a rim shot. Rim shot without the rim shot. So you can tell that the rim shot is also used to accent certain beats, or certain drummers, a lot of drummers play rim shots exclusively on their snare drum during beats and fills. Now, speaking of playing the snare drum, we're going to talk a little bit about holding the sticks and the two different grips that exist in drumming regarding holding the sticks. One grip is called the match grip, and matched grip is played by most of the drummers today because it's a more natural grip to play as opposed to the other grip, which we'll talk about in a second. Now, match grip is both hands are played the same way, as I said. In your right hand, you put the stick about a third of the way up the shaft of the stick in the knuckle, the second knuckle of your index finger, like that, like so. Okay? It's held there by the thumb, like that. So you have this kind of action here. And that, the thumb and the index finger prevent it from sliding up and down the shaft of the stick. So it holds it in place. Now, what controls the stick are these three fingers right here, mainly the middle finger and the ring finger. And the action is this. If the shaft of the stick rests right here in the fleshy part of your thumb ring, along the side of your thumb here, and the action is like so. The action is very similar to when you cast a fishing rod or when you crack a whip, if you ever cracked a whip before. Okay, it's similar like that, similar to that. So this is called match grip. The left hand is played exactly the same way. So from the front, the action is like so. That's exaggerated, but that's the action. The other grip that exists in drumming is called traditional grip. And very briefly, traditional grip is with the butt of the stick held in the webbing of your hand, like so, sort of like you would hold a chopstick. And the bottom two fingers of your hand, the ring finger and your pinky, go underneath the stick. And the top two fingers of your hand, the middle finger and the index finger, go on the top of the stick. And the action is this way. Now it's called traditional because a lot of the drummers from the 20s, 30s, and 40s and 50s played this way, and it also corresponded with a snare drum being tilted in a kind of an unnatural way. I mean, there's a few rock drummers today that play traditional, but for the most part, the match grip is the more natural way physically to play. And just one last thing, when you hold the sticks in matched fashion, the stick should be in line with your forearm, okay? And the action of playing the drum is not elbows and shoulders. It's actually most of the impact is made to the drum, or the control of the stick is made by the wrist and the fingers, like so. All right? So when you're playing, try to limit the elbow action, relax your shoulders nicely, and just play very relaxed. The key is to play relaxed, okay? So with a little practice, of course, like anything else, at first it's going to feel a little awkward, but as you practice, you become more acclimated to it. Okay, now let's bring up the track with the bass drum and the snare drum. Okay, it sounds pretty good, but there's still just one element missing, and that's the high-end part of the drum set, which in this case consists of the hi-hat part. Now let's bring up the hi-hat part and see what difference that makes. Okay, there we have it. Okay, now let's talk a little about the hi-hat stand itself. Now, talking about the stand consists of a rod which goes through the stand, the tubular stand, which is actually hollow, which allows it to go through it. Goes through the stand and is connected to the pedal below. So when I move my foot up and down on the pedal, it actually dictates the movement of the rod. Now we have two cymbals. One cymbal, the bottom cymbal, goes on the rod like that through the hole, rests nicely right there, and it's actually not touching the rod at all. The top cymbal is connected to a clutch, hi-hat clutch it's called, with two felts in between there and a little bit of a hole there, and that goes on the rod like so, and it just rests there. Now what we do to activate the top cymbal, to actually put the whole thing in motion, you depress the pedal down about maybe an inch or an inch and a half and tighten the wing nut to the rod. Okay? Now we have this. Okay? The top cymbal is connected to the rod. Now you want the distance between when you have your foot off the stand at rest, you want the distance between the two cymbals to be, I'd say, between 3/4 of an inch and an inch. You don't want them too far apart, because then you have that, you lose control of the cymbals, the playing of it, and it sounds very sloppy. And then, of course, if you have them too close together, tight and too close together, you don't get any sound at all. So you want a happy medium between the both, like so. Now, the positioning of the hi-hat stand, you don't want it to be too far towards the back, like that, because then your right hand will be too far towards the back, obviously. And you don't want it too far towards the front. You want a nice happy medium between the front and the back. As far as the height is concerned, you want it to be not too high and not too low. In other words, you want to have it at a comfortable height, so when you're sitting erect at the drum set, you're able to play the hi-hat with your stick, either with the tip of the stick, like so, which is a nice delicate sound, or you want to hit it to be able to hit it with on the shoulder of the stick, which creates like a darker sound, like so. So you want it at a height where you're able to do that very, very comfortably. Now, at first, when you first play the hi-hat with your snare drum, it may seem a little awkward. You may hit each of your hands together or whatever, but the action is like so. It's like this. So with a little practice, a little patience, try playing your hi-hat and snare very, very slowly at first, and again, in time, you'll get it with no problem. Now, the hi-hat part we played is counted 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And now again, if you don't have an actual hi-hat to play on, you could play in the air. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, every time your mouth says 2 and 4, you play the snare part. And that goes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, for the bass drum, every time your mouth says 1 and 3 and, you play your bass drum, like so. 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1. Now remember, if you want more time to practice each limb, don't be afraid to pause the VCR and take as much time as you like, okay? And add the next limb only when you're comfortable with the first. Now, there are many different ways to change the color or the character of any given beat. One of which is simply taking the pattern that we're playing on our hi-hat and switching over to the ride on one of the following measure. For example, let's take the beat. Let's get our drumsticks in our hand again. Let's take the beat that we just learned and play it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, you playing along? Okay. Now when I count you in, simply what we're going to do is just take the ride pattern and bring it over to the ride cymbal, okay? Take it from the hi-hat and bring it over to the ride cymbal. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, of course, you could take that same pattern on the ride cymbal and play it on the bell. You could slow it down. You could speed it up. But essentially, the ride cymbal serves, especially in choruses, to serve as a brightening effect. It changes the character of the beat. One way to add excitement and high end to any given beat is the use of the crash cymbal. Okay? Crash cymbals come in different thicknesses, different sizes, depending on the volume you plan to play in and depending on the style of music you plan to play. Now, the crash cymbal also is used to accent a certain phrase that the vocalist or a certain word that the vocalist says, or a certain beat that you play on the bass drum, etc. For right now, what we're going to do is play the beat like we just learned it on the hi-hat, the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and accent every one, the one of each measure. Now, for the most part, it's not usually accented in a song situation on every one of the measure. But for now, just to get into practice, we'll play our hi-hat pattern. When it comes to 1, we just crash, and then we come immediately on the end of 1 back to the hi-hat. Okay, you ready? 1 and 2 and 3 and play along. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. Okay, now we're going to crash on each one, the number 1. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, crash, and 2 and 3 and 4 and crash, and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So you see how that adds a brightness, a brilliance to the drum set and the beat. One of the more interesting aspects of drumming is the fact that you could take any beat, play the same beat, and vary the tempo, just like you can get in the same car and drive it slow, fast, or medium, okay? Now, an example of the beat that we've been working on, the 1 and 3 on the bass drum, here's what it sounds like at the tempo, as if you're driving a car really, really slow, and people are beeping their horns behind you, and you're getting really aggravated. But here's like a sort of a snail's pace of that beat. Okay, now here's when you get in the car and you're still in the city, so you can't put the pedal to the metal yet, but you can drive a little bit faster than you have been, okay? Medium tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, now you're going to get in the car, you're going to put your seatbelt on, you're going to get on the interstate and haul. Okay? This is the same beat again. Now we're going to count it a little faster. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So that's exactly the same beat. Those are just 3 tempos. There are many, 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 many other tempos on the metronome, or many, many other tempos available to you to play. And songs come in all different tempos. Another aspect of playing the same beat, making it sound a little different, is your volume level. The volume level of the whole beat in general, and the volume level of each individual aspect of the beat. Now, for right now, we're just going to concentrate on the whole beat in general. Here's the beat sounding very, very loud at a medium. Let's work at the medium tempo. Very, very loud volume. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's very, very loud. Now let's bring the volume down a little bit and play it like at a medium tempo. No, this is the medium tempo played at a sort of like a medium volume level. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now the baby's sleeping in the next room, but we still want to play our drum kit, so we're going to get really, really, really soft. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now that's very, very soft. Now, one thing when you vary your volume levels, one thing to keep in mind when you're playing is that When you get louder, don't speed up. When you get lower, you notice my tempo stayed the same as I got lower. So when you get lower, don't slow down. Some drummers tend to speed up when they play louder, slow down when they play lower. Okay? Now, very often when you look at a drummer playing a drum set, or you watch MTV, or you watch a band live, you see drums set up in front of the drummer. You know, more very prominent, very visible to the audience. Those are called tom-toms, mounted tom-toms or rack tom-toms. First of all, there's a tom-tom holder connected to the bass drum and fastened with a wing nut, like so. And the tom-tom holder holes are mounted tom-toms, okay, or rack tom-toms, if you will. Okay, they go on like so. And you tighten the wing nut onto the tom-tom holder. Now you have tom 1, and this gets inserted like so. And you tighten it up here, and that's what we'll call tom 2. Okay, these are rack toms. And here we have what's called a floor tom. It's the biggest of our tom-tom family. And it sits on a couple of legs, 3 legs actually, on the floor. Now the legs are fully adjustable on the floor tom. And the height and angle adjustments on the rack toms are many. Okay, like so. I mean, you can adjust them to any height you want, any angle you want. Now, usually, you know, some drum sets have, let's say, 8 rack toms. Some drum sets have 1 rack tom. The average is to have 2, maybe 3 rack toms. And they're usually set up from high pitch to low pitch. The smaller the rack tom, the higher the pitch usually. The larger the tom-tom, the lower the pitch. And they're usually set up left to right as you're sitting at the drum kit, left to right, high to low. The tom-toms are predominantly used in drumming for the purpose of playing drum fills and also to incorporate the tom-tom into a rhythm. Right? The tom-toms are very, very often used in rhythms, a lot of times in ethnic drumming and Latin percussion, Brazilian or whatever, sometimes in rock and roll as well. So that's our the story about our tom-toms, our floor tom, and there you have it. I hope you had a good time. I hope you had fun today. And as you can see, there's a lot to know about our instrument, the drums. To learn more about drums and drumming, a couple of things you could do is to pick up drum magazines, explore some different drum videos, also check out maybe the possibility of studying with a teacher, which is always very important. When you watch MTV or go see a drummer live, you should focus more on what the drummer is doing, actually. And when you pick up some tapes, some CDs of your favorite bands, let's say, and practice along with the drummer is playing now that you know a little bit about playing a simple beat. Also, as far as the drum equipment goes, check out your local music store. Ask questions about cymbals, drums, etc., etc. Now, on the next video of this series, we'll be exploring different drum beats, some drum fills, basic song form, note values, some blues beats. So until then, have a good time, have fun, practice, have patience with yourself, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much for joining us.
DCI Music Video, the leader in music instruction and the first company to release instructional music video, brings you the best.
And then the syncopation is with the left hand. It really gives it a crazy syncopated feeling. So listen to it. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4.
DCI Music Video, the first in instructional music video.